You have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV.
Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Hey everybody, surprise! You're getting a second episode of TV Guidance Counselor this week. We have a little bonus as the holidays are approaching, and this week, obviously, in the United States is Thanksgiving. I know that a lot of people have time off this week. You're traveling through hellacious, is that a word? Hellified? I think that's less of a word than hellacious. You're traveling through difficult circumstances if you're driving or taking the bus or just driving across town, or God forbid, you're at an airport. This time of year is pretty miserable. So I thought I would take this opportunity to give you a little bonus episode. That is correct. You're getting a sort of a mini episode here, and with an amazing guest. My guest, as you may have seen if you saw the title of this episode, is Jane Seymour. Yes, that Jane Seymour of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and of the Bond girl, Jane Seymour. She is fantastic, and I've been trying to make this episode happen for a long time, a couple years. She has been willing to do the show and up for it, but as you can imagine, she is a citizen of the world and is incredibly busy with work and travel, and you will hear in this episode all the things she does, not just acting. She is very, very impressive, and also couldn't be nicer. What a smart, funny, charming person, and it was great to get to talk to her. But we finally found a half hour of her time, and we were able to sit down and chat. So I am so glad that this finally happened, and I cannot thank her enough for taking the time to do it. So I thought, hey, it's an hour's worth of content in a half hour. And what could be better around the holidays? You get this little bonus, and you can listen to it and enjoy it. And even if you enjoy it 1/10 of the amount I enjoyed talking to her, this will be one of your favorite things all year. Speaking of the end of the year, I want to thank everybody again for, in the season of giving and thanks, for listening to the show. It really does mean the world to me. It's been 6 years. We're approaching year 7 of the show and over 400 episodes. And there are people who've been there from the beginning. There are people who've jumped on recently and then have gone back and listened to all the old episodes. And I cannot thank you enough for spending that much time with me. I mean, that is something like 20 whole days of your life listening to me, and I can't really convey how much I appreciate it. It's been a tough year for many people. Everyone I've talked to has not had the greatest year, and so you listening to what I do helps me get through it. And I thank you for telling me also when listening to the show helps you get through things. And special thanks to all the people who give to the Patreon. It is patreon.com/TV Guidance Counselor. Some people give $1. We had people give $100. It blows my mind that you are willing to put your hard-earned dollars towards the listening of this show, and I appreciate it very much. And those of you who cannot give, that is fine too. I would ask you give a little money to a charity this year. There are many, many fine charities. I give as much as I can, and it all helps. For just if you have anything you're passionate about, it all helps. And as I said, there's a million amazing charities out there. So anyway, Jane Seymour this week. We have more episodes from LA coming next week as we wrap the year up. So there's even more to look forward to, but on to the business at hand. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this bonus episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Jane Seymour.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Jane Seymour, how are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Thank you so much for doing this. I have wanted to talk to you for a long time. And one of the things that I'm sort of fascinated by, and that comes up on this show often, is in the era we look at the most, sort of the 70s through the year 2000, there was a real distinct divide between being a TV actor and a movie actor. And you're one of the few people I can think of that sort of managed to cross between those two things back and forth relatively easily. Was that something that was difficult at the time?
Actually, it was. You were right. It was pretty much unheard of, and I was told, you have to do one or the other. And I remember one year which was one of my favorite years, I actually also starred in an original play on Broadway at the same time as doing the miniseries. I did the Mozart play, Amadeus.
Oh, yes, Amadeus.
On Broadway. East of Eden came out on television in the miniseries, which I played Kate. And Summer in Time came out at the same time, which was a film. So, yeah, so I crossed over all of them. And, you know, a lot of my choices at that time were based on the fact that I also chose to have children and, you know, do and there was some, you know, there was some great. It was the era of the miniseries. It was the time when there were fantastic roles, and so, you know, I could have gone and done more movies probably, but I was really, you know, being given the pick of the miniseries, and I just thought, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, East of Eden's maybe my favorite Steinbeck book, and I think that was, you won a Golden Globe for that, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I won the Golden Globe for that, for Best Actress, and yeah, that was great.
and I think Amadeus.
It was actually a lot of people. I remember I met Steven Spielberg for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I'd just been signed to do East of Eden. He said, had I ever seen the original Jimmy Dean one? So he actually invited me to his home for dinner, and we watched the original one, and and then I pointed out to him that I was actually going to play the whole role, not just, you know, the latter part of her life. And,
right.
But yes, that's just a little side note.
Oh, I mean, that's an amazing side note. Yeah, it's when you look at just the span and scope of all the things you've done and all did at once, including raising children at the same time, which is no small feat. It's sort of uniquely positioned, and I think most people here, probably the first thing they saw you in was Live and Let Die. I'm assuming that was, you'd done some TV in the UK before then, but that was probably the first sort of major high-profile role.
Yes, it would be.
But then you immediately sort of were over here within the next couple of years and doing TV shows. And one of the first things I remember seeing you on was probably the Battle of the Network Stars.
Oh, well, I did do Captains and the Kings before that.
Oh, yes.
Which was one of the first miniseries, and actually there's a really interesting story to that, because when I came to America, I was only allowed to bring 300 pounds, British pounds, per year, and they would write it in the back of your passport, and I didn't have credit cards or anything like that, so I was literally living on vapor. I gave myself 6 weeks to make it. I had gotten the role at the last minute in Captains and the Kings, and then at the last second, they couldn't get me a work permit, so I was about to go home, and then I was offered McCloud episode playing an Israeli tank commander, and they could get me a work permit. So having done that, being at Universal, having lunch, the Captains Kings people saw me and said, "Oh my gosh, you're able to work." And I said, "Yes." So we got another role, which they gave me, and the networks loved my work so much in it that they told the network, if they could do another 2 hours in which I had a larger role and added to the miniseries, then you know, that's what they wanted. So all of a sudden, unbeknownst to me, I get nominated for an Emmy for Captains and the Kings, which originally was a small role that then grew. So that was the kind of thing that used to happen to me back then, and. But obviously you missed Captains and the Kings. But yes, Battle of the Network Stars, that was very strange. But yes,
yeah,
I was in that.
It's a very strange thing. It's even though they brought it back a couple of years ago, everyone who I've had on the show that's done it's just completely bonkers. And I think, was It's a Knockout? Was that the show in the UK that was kind of similar?
Oh God, that was terrible. They did a royal It's a Knockout. And somehow or other I ended up in that one too. But
I didn't even know you had done that.
Sadly, well, something like that. I can't remember what it was, but yes, something like that. And I was on Fergie's team and Prince Andrew's team, of course.
Right.
No, I wasn't on Prince Andrew's. I was on Fergie's team, and that was very bizarre. But the Network Stars one, I was just reminiscing about it with a friend yesterday. I remember distinctly. Was it Robert?
Robert Conrad was your captain,
yes.
I think. Yeah.
And so he, had to meet me, and he was furious when he met me. He said, "Why are you on my team?" He said, "What sports do you do?" And I said, "Ballet." And he just turned his nose, walked away, just in horror. It's like, oh my God. And of course, I ended up winning 2 of the events. One was golf, which I'd never touched in my life. I beat Kelly Savalas and everybody because I didn't want to make a fool of myself, so I just turned to the nearest person and said, "Look, just put me in the right position so at least I look all right. What do I do?" And they just said, "Stand like this, don't move, do this, do that, do it 5 times or 4 times, how many balls it was. I don't look to see where the ball is going. Just do exactly the same thing like a pendulum." And I won. I got all 4 balls, in exactly the same place closest to the hole. So, and then they put me in a kayak. I've never been in a kayak in my life, but because of ballet, I have balance. So I was pretty good at that too. So
his complaints were unfounded. It's
very unfounded. Yeah.
It's funny how seriously a lot of those people took those games when I rewatched them. Like Dan Haggerty's gonna blow a gasket if you don't win.
No, I mean it was serious, and I remember that the network that put it on had staged it so they would definitely win.
Right.
And at the last minute, we were having to pull this tug-of-war uphill whilst, the network that had the show on, they were pulling downhill. And I've never forgotten, Kurt Russell was in the front there pulling, and I was just cheering them on because I would be useless. And he literally had blood coming out of his mouth.
Oh, my God.
I mean, every time I see Kurt, I remind him of the time that, he actually drew blood to win it. And we won, and I got a down payment on my first home. So I will never forget network stars, ever.
Yeah.
And we all celebrated like forever, and we were all the closest friends forever. And oh my goodness me, what a bonding experience that was. It was like a war.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, we've all been through this experience, and now we'll never forget it. And around the same time, you also were in the beginnings of Battlestar Galactica, which I think kind of started as not quite a miniseries, but they kicked it off as sort of a big world premiere movie, and that was a huge deal.
Well, that was very interesting because I was the only character in Battlestar that was not signed to a series. So they did a 2-hour pilot that they then, having shown it as a pilot, they then showed it in the theaters as a movie, which I thought was astounding.
Right.
But what happened was Glenn Larson, who had put me in my first show in McCloud, put me into Battlestar Galactica. And I played Serena, and I played the only character that died. I died in the original one of galactic cancer. Now, you don't know that because when they tested it, I tested apparently higher than anyone they'd signed, so they all begged me to come back, and I said, "But I'm dead." And Glenn said, "No, not exactly." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, we reshot a lot of it, and now you're very much alive." And I said, "Well, that means that pretty much everything I played where I'm dying of cancer must have been cut out." And he went, "Pretty much." And then I had Lorne Greene calling me personally, "Please, please, please." And I just said, "Look, no, I'm not doing a series." And they begged and begged and begged. And in the end, the compromise was that they paid me way more than I ever imagined. And I did 2 episodes in which they had my character do everything that I probably would have done over the next 2 years, like fly a battleship and, get married and all that kind of stuff.
You got a real economy of time in there.
Very, very economic time. I did 2 episodes. That's it. Yes.
I mean, it's interesting though, because people would say, why would you ever turn down a series? Why wouldn't you want to do a series? But it really was a tough decision it still is for actors where, if that thing goes, that's great, but it also may be robbing you of other work, and especially where you're doing stage work and films. I imagine that is just something that would have been not the best move.
Well, at the time, I was doing movies as well, as you're so right. And, and then I got really fortunate because I would, be able to do things like miniseries where you come in, you play a role, you tell a whole story, and then that's it. And I also kind of saw at the beginning of Battlestar Galactica, I saw the other members of the cast and a lot of kind of stuff I didn't like, with managers and press agents and all the sort of behind the scenes stuff, which I absolutely didn't want to have anything to do with. So that was another reason I didn't do it. Right. And then but then, when I did do a series, when I did do Dr. Quinn, it was because I was literally penniless, and my ex-husband had lost all our money and left me so in the red, owing so much money to so many banks, things I knew nothing about, that I, had called the networks, or had my agent call networks and say, Jane will do anything. And they said, even a series. And he said, yep. She said, anything. And anything turned out to be Dr. Quinn.
I mean, of all the things that could be anything, you could have been stuck in God knows what, and you ended up getting something that's really, really great.
Well, they guaranteed me that it would never actually go on the air as a series.
Right.
Not in writing. They made me sign for 5 years, but they guaranteed me, they said, it's a woman in the lead, that will never work. It's a Western, that definitely doesn't work. It's a period piece, definitely won't work. It's, children, animals, family values, nope. And a medical show, forget about it. So they basically told me that I could, sign for 5 years and not worry about it, make a lovely, movie of the week, and it would never be picked up. And this was even confirmed to me by the people I was meeting at Paramount on the day I had to make the decision, who were developing a comedy for me, actually. And they said, oh, no, it's a lovely script, you'll be lovely in it, but it'll never be a series because of, and they repeated all these reasons. And then when they tested it, it tested higher than anything CBS had that year. And David Poltrack, who was in charge of testing, told Mr. Sagansky, and he said, no, test it again. It tested even higher. Try a different testing. He tried some other testing. And Mr. Poltrack basically said, I will leave the network and not test you anymore if you don't listen to my advice. So they put us on opposite the Orange Bowl to kill it, followed by Saturday night at 8 o'clock, which was referred to in those days as the death slot. Mm-hmm. And we made top 10 on both days.
Did you know...
The rest is history.
Absolutely, absolutely. And did you know, despite them telling you all this stuff, did you know, pardon my dogs in the background, a child must be going by on a bike so they lose their mind. Did you know while you were making it that maybe, hey, despite what they're telling me, there's something here, or did it take the testing?
No, I read the script, and I was, as you can imagine, in a very, very low place in my life. And this movie of the week, it just was so uplifting, and the connection between me and Joe Lando, we actually fell in love, and we just, it was very special. And I knew it when we were making it, and then when I saw it, it was even more special. And then when Jessica Gansky asked me to go to the upfronts, which I'd never been to before, I was watching all the other, clips, and then it was my turn to go on stage, and I went up and I told all the affiliates that this was the show that was going to be the most successful. And I came off stage, why did you say that? I said, because I think it is. I said, I think America is ready for the show right now. I said, this is, there's a lot of people who will love this. They'll love the message. They'll identify with it. I said, it's, I think it's something unique and special. And he got angry with me for saying that at the time.
Really?
And now apparently it is still playing in 98 countries, including, here in France, where I know it plays pretty much every day somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you got your second Golden Globe for that as well, for the two things.
Yes, and again, nobody wins any awards for, soft material like that. Never,
right.
Never, no. So that, again, broke the barriers again, yeah.
Well, you mentioned that they were developing a comedy for you, which is something I wanted to talk to you about, because clearly, I mean, you're very funny. You have a natural comedic timing, and even though there is bits of humor in a lot of the stuff you had done prior to that, obviously James Bond has some humor to it, and some of the things you've done had some humor. I don't think you had done sort of a full-on comedy. Maybe Head Office, I guess, is a full-on comedy, but
yes.
Surprisingly not a lot, of comedies before then.
Well, I did a Chevy Chase film called A Heavenly Dog. I did Head Office. In the theater, I'd obviously Amadeus, some of that was quite comedic. In theatre in England, I've done a lot of comedy, but I knew I could play comedy, but people don't usually look at someone who looks like me and go, "Oh yes, comedy." So,
Right.
but then I would, guest on things like Murphy Brown and other things I guested on. But it wasn't till I did the role in Wedding Crashers that people went, "Oh my God, she's funny." It was great because I think there comes a time in your life where. Well, I mean, first of all, I was playing ingenues. I played virgins way too long, way into my 40s. I did, great sort of love affair movies like Summer in Time. I did a lot of period pieces, not a lot of comedy and period pieces. But I was always referred to by Sir Peter Hall used to say that I was a character actress in spite of myself. So I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "You're basically an actress." He said, "But you can play any character, but you look at you and you go, oh, she is just, looks good on camera and will play who she is. But you're not." He said, "You are, full-blown actress who is not afraid to play literally anything and makes choices that a lot of people would never make, but you make them with such conviction." He also referred to me as being a dangerous actress. He said, you make choices no one in their right mind would make, but you do them with such conviction and authenticity that they work. And so, he begged me never to go to an acting class. He said, "Will you just keep doing what you're doing and just don't mess with it?" So that my technique is I just become the person and, put it out there and then walk away.
And so you never studied acting formally?
At Performing Arts High School, but they would never, in those days, credit me as being one of the. I mean, when you did ballet and you did musical theater and you did all the curricula when you were at the school I was at, and it was a terrific school. And yes, I did a lot. I did improv. I did. Don't think we did any scene study. So I basically just went into the theater and started, doing repertory. I mean, I played all the classics. Every 2 weeks I would either be the lead in a Shakespeare or Middleton and Rowley or Goldoni or Ibsen or Chekhov or whatever it was, and sometimes comedy. And I'd be playing one at night, 8 times a week, whilst rehearsing all day for the next one. So I would say I studied, on the boards, literally.
Right. You had a work ethic that was just do it until and learn by doing, basically.
Learn by working with directors and doing the classics. I mean, instead of doing a scene, I was doing the whole play whilst rehearsing another one at the same time. So I think I got a lot out of that, and I've seen a lot of people that I've worked with make countless notes and do all kinds of stuff to find their character. And for me, and I spent time actually with Laurence Olivier one time before he was going to do a film the following day. I was at Richard Ashmore's house, and I watched him prepare by just hanging out with all of us and telling us a story about what had happened to him in his school years with the schoolmaster. And the next day I went to watch him work, and there was exactly the character that he was talking about when he was telling the story. So, and I know Larry, his whole thing was the nose. What was the nose going to look like? With me, invariably, it's hair. I mean, you have whatever it is, Once we figured out the hair, I know who my character is. So, I mean, I'm joking about, of course, because I do an enormous amount of research, especially if I'm playing Maria Callas or Wallace Simpson or, somebody real. But I can, if something is really well written, it really, I know, I resonate with it immediately, and that's what I always look for.
I mean, hair is important. I mean, you're doing Marie Antoinette. The hair is going to figure it out.
Yeah, and my hair has won a lot of awards. I mean, my hair has won more Emmys than I have. So, yes, let's not discredit the hair.
Right. Is it easier for you to play someone who's a real person versus a character that you're creating off the page?
No, I think there's sort of more expected of you when you play a real person, because then, if you don't actually look like them, you have to sort of pass somewhere close to it and then embody that person that maybe people are able to see on newsreel. So I think there's a huge responsibility there. I like playing real people because you don't have to make up a backstory. Sometimes, when you, for example, I just did the Kaminsky method, and I don't think Chuck had actually even thought what my backstory was. So, people ask me, well, tell me the backstory of Madeline. Well, I don't know, because Chuck hasn't written it yet. I can make my own one up, but if you're playing Marie Antoinette, or you're playing Wallis Simpson, or Maria Callas, or Hazel Brandon Smith, or Fanny Kemble, or any of the others that I've played. There's lots of amazing material, but then it's the question of how do you bring the facts into the emotional context of the material that you're playing.
Exactly. And when you were doing these guest spots in the 90s, there was a lot of sitcoms where you were like guesting as a version of you for like 4 or 5 episodes.
I know. I mean, really weird, really strange.
Yeah, it was like more than once is weird.
People, you know what? I think that's the highest compliment, actually, to be asked to do some sort of parody of something that's become iconic. So for me to play a heightened version of Dr. Quinn, or Jane Seymour as Dr. Quinn, or whatever it was. I can't remember.
And the Nanny. I think you were playing Jane Seymour as Dr. Quinn. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think that's because we were both on CBS. I don't think either of us had a choice.
Right.
Yeah. But doing those funny little things, those little skits, actually, I think made people realize that I did have comedic timing, and they were fun, but were they necessarily the right choice at that time? I don't know, but they were. I mean, I've even done Funny or Die, and Jim Kimmel and stuff like that, and some of those things are iconic. I think they're hilarious. I mean, and one of them was completely my idea. So it's fun when you have an idea and put it in the hands of people, all these top comedy writers, and manage to bring the cast back together and improv and make this really funny skit. I don't know if you ever saw it, but Dr. Quinn, Morphine Woman.
Oh, yes.
It was very funny.
Yes, indeed. Was that the one that was your idea?
Oh, yes, 100%, yes. I was at the time watching Breaking Bad, and I said, it always occurred to me that it was family television, so even though the only medicines she would have had would have been morphine and cocaine, we had to turn the labels around, and, and we had whiskey and leather straps. So, I said, the chances of her turning the townspeople into raging addicts and alcoholics was very high.
I mean, that's a brilliant take on it, though. And also, I think, is so refreshing for people who see you, especially in the 90s, who had seen you in all these very serious roles, period pieces and things like that, to show that you, although you do great work, you don't necessarily take yourself seriously, and, you can laugh at things. You have a sense of humor. Definitely.
I can't imagine how you could possibly survive life without having a good sense of humor. But yes, I've always kind of broken all the barriers of everything, really. I mean, I also paint, I design, I write books, I do public speaking. I do, lots and lots of different things. I have a very well-rounded life. And I think, some people say, well, what do you prefer, or how can you do all of it? I can't not do all of it. It's just all different parts of who I am, and to me, it all comes from the same place, which is an authentic response to something that it takes some form of communication.
Right.
That's it. That's what it comes down to. I take in life, and then I kind of share it with people, either through the acting or producing or writing or speaking or painting or sculpting, whatever it is.
So the vehicle may be different, but the fuel is always the same, and the sort of intention.
Yes.
So I know that your time is short, but I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you've done, and to your point, this may include, any of the arts you've done, not just acting, that you think maybe people maybe is underseen, or that you'd really like people to check out that maybe not enough people have?
Well, I don't know how many people actually know that I did create The Open Heart. I think a lot of people I've heard recently think that was something that Kay Jewelers came up with and asked me to sell, which was absolutely not the case. It's something that came to me. It was inspired by the way my mother survived World War II and led her life. And I'd also had a near-death experience, and I'd realized that in life there were only two really important things, and that was the love that you share and the difference you make. So I paint for my own kind of sanity, I suppose.
Right.
I now am shown in museums, and I've been, asked to design so many things. I have designed furniture and lamps and fabrics and all kinds of things. And it's but the open hearts is a very big thing for me. And now there are large sculptures in public places, which really thrill me, because I think in the world that we're in, where everyone's so divisive and everyone's so polar opposite, this is a way of uniting people in what is the most important thing in life, which is to have a purpose and to realize there are people worse off than you, and that even when you go through your own struggles, that you maybe have a unique ability and opportunity to help others. So that's kind of, I guess it's my mantra, it's my symbol, it's behind everything that I do.
And I mean, you're doing it sincerely and genuinely, and I think if you are approaching work that way, it will be good work and people will find it. And I think that is what you've summed up so well with all the things you've done, on screen and off. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you taking the time, and as we've established, you're very busy.
Yes, a little bit.
So I so appreciate it, and it's been great speaking with you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I told you, how great is she? She's amazing. Just an absolutely incredible person. So smart and funny and so great to talk to. She's fabulous. And I really had a great time doing this chat. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Enjoy the holidays if it's something you celebrate for Thanksgiving, the giving of thanks. If it's not, just enjoy your week anyway. If you would like to email me, you can do so at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or ken@icanread.com. icanread.com, of course, being my stand-up comedy page. I don't have a lot of shows lined up from now to the end of the year, but I'll have some dates coming up, I am sure. There is also a wonderful web store up there where you can buy TV Guidance Counselor and Ken Read merchandise. I may have more of the retro TV phone viewers, so when I do get those, I'll let people know, and they'll be up on that site. Also, for the holidays, if you want to go to my TeePublic site, which is tpublic.com/user/ I Can Read, REID, you can buy all manner of t-shirts, sweatshirts, phone cases with various retro TV, a lot of New England ephemera, clothes stores, Christmas stuff. People enjoy that. It's a fun gift to blow your friends and family's minds with things they forgot about. Number one seller is the Movie Loft. Number two seller, Hilltop Steakhouse. So that's the kind of thing. If you're from this area, I get $2 for everything that is sold on there. So it, again, all goes back into the show. I've talked more than enough here. So I'm sure you're sick of hearing me. But again, thank you. And you can hear me again next week once you've stopped getting sick of me on a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
It's the Order of the Knighthood. I'm an officer of the British Empire. That's what it means.